So, all the time since this lockdown started, people have been thinking about how we get the economy going again at some point. As you know, the day is coming when, to some extent, the lockdown will be eased. And for a long time, behind the scenes, government and others have been thinking about how the workplace might return. Millions of people have been sitting at home for weeks. And now the day is coming when they might go back to work. And so we have this guidance as to how the workplace might function in future. And I wonder whether you are happy with it in terms of your own job. Would you feel protected at work with this guidance? Is it tough enough? And if you run a business, do you need more help from the government? 0345 6060 973. Someone who's been giving the new workplace some thought is Jack Pringle from the architecture firm Perkins and Will. How are you tonight?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. Let me ask you first, how feasible it'll be for businesses to comply with the government draft guidelines?
Well, we've only seen the draft guidelines, and I'm going to be very interested to see the real guidelines when they come out and whether they go into much more detail. We've been looking at this issue for a number of weeks now so we can advise our clients, and our conclusions were very much along the lines that the government has set out already. I think it means that, it depends on the office that you're operating in. I think small firms with small offices are going to find it quite difficult because of the space constraints and also their organisational ability, the backup they have in their operations teams. Larger organisations with larger offices and more resources, I think, can set to replanning their offices to meet the social distancing guidelines of 2 meters in one way or another. And the devil is in that detail, more easily. I suspect we're going to end up with 3 shifts in the office, or 3 teams in the office. The first team being those that can work from home or need to work from home, perhaps because of their age or underlying health issues, or perhaps they just don't feel comfortable coming into the office. And then for those that need to come into the office, want to come into the office, feel comfortable, probably a couple of shifts there, an A and a B shift. So in fact, your office population is going to be down probably less than 40%, which does give you an opportunity to get the social distancing into the layout of the office by blocking off desks, etc.
But home working is obviously going to be crucial, isn't it? Because if you have the same size building and you're employing the same number of people, they can't all be where they used to be pre-virus.
That's absolutely right. I mean, the maths speak for themselves. But I think that's how it's going to work out, and not everybody can come into the office at the usual time anyway, because the transport systems are not going to be able to support that. And I think actually a lot of employees are worried about coming back to work, and they're probably even more worried about travelling to work. If you can't drive, or you can't cycle, or you can't walk, and you have to use public transport of one description or another, you're probably more worried about that than whether your employer has done a good job laying out the office, provided you have some sort of faith in the quality of the organisation you work for.
Well, that's the thing. And when you talked about the vagueness in some of these guidelines, there'll be fantastic employers out there who will do everything they can to protect their staff. But we know from listeners who are already feeling that they're forced to work right now, that there are some employers out there saying to their staff, well, like it or lump it. And if that's the future, if these guidelines are so vague that workers can't feel protected, that's a huge problem.
I think that is a huge problem, particularly, at the, if you like, the lower end of the quality scale, and for people that need their jobs, that they need their income. So I would like to think the guidelines will be sharpened up, but we have to see. We've only seen leaked draft guidelines, so presumably there's more to come.
And we're talking principally about offices, but of course there are so many different workplaces. There are workplaces like restaurant kitchens where you wonder how social distancing can take place. Schools, the back rooms of just about anywhere, airlines, trains, buses. These guidelines surely can't apply to those places.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And even when we're looking at offices, although you can get social distancing, say, when you're sitting at your desk just by checkerboarding or sitting further apart than normal or at meeting rooms, what do you do about walking around the office? What do you do about going to the kitchen? What do you do about going to the loos? I think the loos are actually quite problematic. Cleaning regimes are going to have to be stepped up enormously. But in some areas, I think it is going to be quite challenging. And then the issue of PPE comes in. So, what measures can an employer put into their workplace of whatever description in terms of appropriate screenage or PPE for people to wear?
Thanks so much for talking to us. We do appreciate it. That's Jack Pringle, who is from the architecture firm Perkins and Will. We've been doing a great deal of work on this in the last few weeks. So, what about you? Are you ready to go back to work if something like these guidelines are what will get you through the door? 0345 6060 973. Millions of people out of work at the moment, not going to the office, many people furloughed. Are these guidelines enough? Would they protect your safety? And if you run a business, if you're responsible for the bills and you've also been looking at no money in the bank account, how much money will you need to spend to keep your workforce safe? 0345 6060 973.